Larry One Ryan here. Suburbicon. Suburbicon stars Matt Damon, Julianne Moore, and Oscar Isaac. It's also directed by George Clooney. And I believe he also helped write the script, because I believe also the Coen brothers wrote the script as well, or were also co-writers. Coen brothers, of course, did movies like Fargo and I forget the others. Of course, the TV series Fargo as well. But Suburbicon, it's a pretty interesting movie. I remember I heard about it when it was in theaters, but I remember there were several bad reviews of it. And of course at that time, I really didn't care that much because I really didn't hear anything about it. I don't even remember seeing any kind of promos for it, either on social media or on TV. But then I don't really watch a lot of TV anyways. But anyways, so Suburbicon is supposed to be this small, idyllic town, and it's considered to be the perfect place to make a home, raise a family. And I want to say this is supposed to take place sometime in the 1950s, possibly maybe early 1960s, but definitely somewhere around that time frame. I'm going to say 50s because of the fact that the style of it, the way everyone is dressed, and how the homes are decorated, and all the cars that everyone's driving, they're, the kind of stuff that you expect to see during the 1950s. So Matt Damon, his character is Gardner Lodge, and one day something happens where these two men break into his home, and though it's not really quite clear what they want, they just break in and start ordering him around, and then they take his wife, and then eventually his wife is murdered, and they get he gets a chance to, of course his wife was played by Julianne Moore, but then Julianne Moore also plays twins, because I guess, so there's his wife, so she plays his wife, and she's in a wheelchair because of some accident that happened, or it's explained in the movie pretty much, and at the same time, and then Julianne Moore plays, of course, his wife's twin sister, and which is pretty interesting, because I felt like Julianne Moore, she definitely gave a really great performance in this. Of course, Matt Damon too. I mean, really the entire cast in this. Even those actors in this that are not well known. Even the little boy in this, the one that plays Gardner Lodge's son. I've never seen him before in any other movie. But he did a really great job too. And he looked like he's only maybe 10 or 11 or 12 or something like that. But yeah, definitely great performances all around in this. And it's interesting because, essentially what happens with Matt Damon's character after his wife is murdered and he gets a chance to go and identify the two guys that broke into his home and took his wife. But for whatever reason, he chooses not to identify them. I guess he's scared, or he's aware that these two guys would, even if they were arrested and convicted, they probably would send some other guys after him, to get even or whatever. And So he chooses not to identify them as being the guys that broke in his home, took his wife, ultimately murdered her, and but then it's things kind of like, I guess, still kind of gets to him nonetheless. And then around the same time, he tries to kind of figure out a more, I guess, clever way, like tries to figure out his own way to go about dealing with these guys that murdered his wife, which ends up being like really not a very good way to handle things, or but yeah, I mean, it's, well, and also too, I mean, it's kind of like, I don't want to get into too many details, but because the guy's like not necessarily directly murdered her, but still had a lot to do with it. So I'll leave it at that. But essentially they did, because they broke in, and if they didn't break in, then none of that stuff would have happened. So and at the same time, there's like another story in this, like a side kind of story, where because of the fact that in this town there's nothing but white people living in the neighborhood, and when this black family, they move in, and that's when there's a lot of scenes that are kind of hilarious, though, because both hilarious, and then also because initially what happens is, once this black family moves in to the neighborhood, people start noticing right away, and of course everybody's freaking out, and because they're like, I guess because I don't know, because they're all racist. That's what it comes down to in this movie, because even eventually it gets to the point where like this big mob, they form outside the home of this black family, and they start like, throwing stuff at the house and burning stuff on the lawn. And at one point, like, one guy goes up and he like smashes one of the front windows, and then he places he gets a Confederate flag and he places it like kind of on the inside, on the corners of the window, so it could hang there. And then he does that, and then he just like raises his arms and like proudly, or it's really interesting, because it's like this movie it has different layers to it. It's like it addresses both the idiocy of prejudice and racism and stereotypes, but it also pokes fun at all of that, and not only that, but pokes fun at those people who, really at anyone, but at anyone who happens to, for whatever reason, not isn't open to diversity. Anyone who isn't open to diversity. So this movie is good at pointing out at how idiotic people tend to be, when they're not open to just accepting the fact that, hey, everyone's different, you can't always be the same, and if you're not going to accept that, if you're not going to accept that we all have differences, then yeah, it's going to drive you crazy. But it doesn't matter, because eventually you're going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to accept it, regardless of what your own personal opinions are, personal beliefs, because that's just the way it is, and really it's our differences that that should unite us. It's our differences that ultimately help us find some kind of common ground with one another. I mean, as far as human beings are concerned, you know, I don't know. I mean, that's what I got from this movie, and so much more. And then, yeah, at the same time, there's these cheesy parts, you know, but I like that it's done in a way where, you know, it's not taken too seriously. I mean, except for when it comes to, you know, the part about addressing prejudice, racism. But still, I really like everything else around that part of the movie is like, I don't know how to explain it, like almost like artsy, but also not too artsy. And like just very unique in a way. I don't know how else to describe it. You know, obviously, as far as rating goes, I would give this 9.5 out of 10. Definitely 9.5. Or you know what? Even 10 at the most. Well, obviously 10. It's 1,000 at the most. I mean, bare minimum 9.5. But, you know, I would say, because if I were to watch this several more times, I'd probably ultimately just give it a solid 10. Because the ending, you know, I like the way it ends. I really like the way it ends. It's like, it doesn't just like, it's not so realistic that it just like, it's not anticlimactic. Because that's what I hate. I don't like anticlimactic endings, you know, especially when the rest of the movie is like really interesting, really thought-provoking, and which this is definitely very thought-provoking. But then the ending was just, for me, it was like just the icing on the cake, like, because everything else was like, again, like I said, pretty interesting. There are some really great performances, cheesy moments, but also really truthful moments. And then it builds up, and then everything kind of fizzles out. But then the end is just perfect, and there's no dialogue in the end either. It's just, of course, I don't want to give it away, but yeah, to me, for me, it ultimately, like, it summed up perfectly, you know, the fact of, the fact that how ludicrous, ridiculous, things like being prejudiced really is, you know, how ludicrous being prejudiced and racist really, really is. I mean, when you really think about it, I don't even really think that most people really tend to think about those kinds of things, like, on a regular basis. Like, I mean, really, like, day to day, every day, all night. Which neither do I. But, I mean, I'm saying, like, you know, this movie is definitely one of those movies that makes you think about it even more. Yeah. I don't want to ramble on and on about it. It's a really great movie. I highly recommend it to everyone. It's got everything in it for me. So, yeah, 10 out of 10. Like I said, 9.5 at the bare minimum, but hey, that's how it is, you know. And if you don't like Matt Damon, because I know I came across several reviews of this where people said that they didn't like it because they didn't like Matt Damon, and that they've never liked Matt Damon. Hey, I think he's a pretty good actor. I mean, yeah, I'll admit there's maybe been some stuff, you know, like those Bourne movies he did that were like, eh. But in this, he does a pretty good job. I would even say pretty awesome job. So, if you're not going to watch this just because you don't like Matt Damon, I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to be missing out on a lot. So yeah, there you go. But hey, this is just my opinion. All of this is just my opinion, but I'm sharing it nonetheless. So, So that'll do it for my review of Suburbicon. Once again, I give it 10 out of 10. And thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. As always, till next time, don't forget, keep it real, keep on rocking, and peace.